Hi, everybody. Thank you for bearing with us. We had some technical issues, of course, on our very first webinar. So my name is Elizabeth Rico, and I am the Outreach Manager of Leadership and Business Development for the Arizona Farm Bureau. And as part of our Wednesday webinar series, we teamed up with American Farm Bureau and Elise Stoddard Cruz to kind of kick off this event with something that was specific to our county leaders in whatever leadership capacity you happen to be serving in or potentially serving in. So we are going to have a Q&A chat feature. So we can't hear you or see you, but if you comment in the chat box, we can definitely hear you. And at the very end, we're going to have our own resident expert, Christy Davis, here from the Arizona Farm Bureau to answer some of those questions that you may have about leadership succession planning and what that looks like for your county farm bureau. So without further ado, please enjoy this short video.
Hello, my name is Elise Stoddard Cruz, and I am the Managing Director of Leadership Development at the American Farm Bureau Federation. In my current role, I work in training and development for county, state, and AFBF level leaders. In previous role, I worked in member engagement and leadership development at Florida Farm Bureau. So I worked a lot closer to counties, and it was because of that experience, coupled with a really great conversation that I've recently had with some friends at Arizona Farm Bureau. So this concept of leadership succession planning, specifically for county farm bureaus, kind of bubbled up to the surface as something we should be taking pretty seriously. So I'm excited to talk to you more about it, and let's get started. I want you to look at this question on the screen. So just as farmers and ranchers have family legacies by passing down skills, knowledge, and passions for their specific farm or ranch, so too should Farm Bureau board members define the legacy that they want to leave and identify leaders who will come behind them. Ask yourself, does your county farm bureau have members with the desire, skills, and knowledge that you think are necessary to help lead the way and pave the way for your county farm bureau to succeed for years to come? The objective of this conversation today is to uncover the purpose of leadership succession planning. What is it and why do we need it? To define the impact that you as an individual and as a leader at the county farm bureau level will make on your county farm bureau and on farm bureau as a whole. We'll review the steps that you can take to identify and usher in existing talent in your county, because truthfully, a lot of the onus of responsibility here is on leaders who are eventually going to leave the organization. Who is going to fill your shoes? What exactly is it? Succession planning is the process of identifying and developing new leaders to eventually replace current leaders. At its best, it's a proactive and systematic investment in building a pipeline of leaders within an organization, and sometimes even identifying strong external candidates. Maybe the folks who will be taking your shoes aren't even involved in Farm Bureau yet. Talk about that later. So when transitions become necessary, leaders at all levels should hopefully have the skills and knowledge they need to act to make that transition smooth and successful. Let's talk about those transitions really quickly. Even if you're not planning on leaving the Farm Bureau family anytime soon, it's important to do this work and have these thoughts and conversations now prior to your departure of Farm Bureau or your transition into another type of member engagement within Farm Bureau. People ebb and flow out of county Farm Bureau leadership all the time for a variety of reasons. Think back to your time serving on your county board and think about if anyone has left, come, and what reasons they had for stepping in and out of Farm Bureau leadership. Sometimes it's quick, unfortunately, due to declining health or maybe family obligations. And other times, folks just find volunteerism opportunities elsewhere, and that's something that's totally respectable. Other times, it's because folks recognize the need for fresh perspectives or maybe renewed leadership within your county Farm Bureau. We encourage everyone to practice self-awareness, and it takes a lot of that self-awareness to kind of think forward and understand if your county could benefit from enrolling these new and fresh perspectives. And sometimes that means transitioning your leadership from a county farm bureau board seat into a different kind of maybe committee work or other supportive role at your county farm bureau level. Think about all of those things when it comes to your time in leadership at Farm Bureau coming to a close, whether you anticipate that happening in a few weeks from now, in a few months from now, or a few years from now. Think back to this time that you took on your current leadership role. What would have made it easier? Maybe you were voluntold that you were going to be serving on the board, or maybe it was something hard fought to win. Whatever your situation was coming into your leadership role is going to dictate a lot of your feelings and how you would typically address succession planning at the county farm bureau level. So let's keep those things in mind as we move on. I think that one of the most important pieces of creating a good succession plan for your county farm bureau leadership is to first identify your own legacy. And this might sound a little selfish, but it should be. Now that we kind of know the purpose of succession planning, it's important to be able to define your impact and really clarify the legacy that you hope to leave. You want to take steps by writing down maybe 2 or 3 sentences that clearly identify what you'd like to be known for. This not only helps in your own leadership journey and introspectively helps you as a person and as a leader, but it will also help you identify the types of leaders you should be on the lookout for to fill those shoes. And those types of leaders that we'll spend some time trying to identify a little bit later on in the conversation. So to kick us off, I have some prompts up on the screen, and I want you to take some time. Maybe grab a pen or pencil and write it down in a notebook somewhere for later, or maybe you can grab your phone and add it to your notes section, which is something I do a lot. So read through these with me. What do you want to be remembered for? How do you want people to feel? And that's as a result of having worked with you. That's as a result, maybe how do you want your members to feel at your county farm bureau, knowing that you're a board member? There are prompts that you can use. I want my legacy to be. I want my legacy to include. I want to be remembered for. I want people to be inspired by the way I want to be defined by my time spent. And I want my work at Farm Bureau to be defined by. These are going to be so unique to every single person who attempts this exercise, and that's totally fine. To get us kicked off, I did ask a few friends to help us out by sharing their legacy statements with us. So let's check those out now.
I want my leadership legacy to include standing strong in times of diversity and trials, and that I encouraged my team with respect and integrity as we navigated uncharted waters. I want my work at Farm Bureau to be described as being an effective advocate for all of agriculture, and that I represented all interests at the table. I want people to be inspired by my passion and genuine desire to be an advocate, a leader, and a friend.
I hope to be remembered as someone who was genuine and who has a love for God and our country and farming and our rural way of life, and that I always wanted to make everyone feel included and that they were an important part of our organization, and that I made a special effort to always make them feel welcome, and that I was a person who always wanted to do what was the right thing, even if it wasn't the thing that was going to benefit me the most personally.
Go.
I want to be remembered as someone who is passionate about women's leadership, someone who gave women a community in which to find themselves with other folks who are like-minded, where they could learn together, train together, and become even more articulate about our industry. And then not only to give them a community, but to give them an opportunity that they can go out and share what they've learned in a confident manner. They'd engage with the consumer from 9 to 90 and also become an advocate for the farming and ranching industry across this country. That's the legacy that I would want to leave.
Some of you may have recognized a few of those faces, and I said your home state hero, Miss Sherry Saylor. And thank you to my friends who were so willing to share in that project. And they enjoyed it as well. So when you think about your legacy, what do you want people to remember about you during your time in County Farm Bureau leadership? I think it's something that we can get caught up in thinking about what's new, what's next, what's maybe best, but spending some time to reflect on your time at your County Farm Bureau level and asking yourself if you've really accomplished the things that you want to accomplish, and can you accomplish the things that you want to accomplish based on what you want your legacy to be, I think is just as important as any other sort of planning or steps that you could take outside of kind of this inflection, inward look at what you would like your legacy to be. So if you would like to, you can pause this video and take some more time to capture it down, or you can do it maybe after we finish up. Let's talk about the steps of succession planning. And these can all be found on Farm Bureau University. It's university.fb.org, and I'll link it at the end of our conversation today. But up on Farm Bureau University, we walk through the steps of succession planning, and we talk a little bit more in depth about each of these things. So if you're more interested in how to accomplish some of these, and there are full examples along with a full learning module that you can access for free as a Farm Bureau member up on Farm Bureau University. But let's get started. You have to first prepare, then identify, then ask. That's the biggest one. Finally, the transition and the follow-up. So we'll dig in a little bit deeper into what each of those look like. So first, you have to prepare for this transition. You have to capture down all of the institutional knowledge that you have as a County Farm Bureau leader. Write it out. What's in your head, but not on paper. Spend some time and write it all down. There are so many best kept secrets in Farm Bureau only because we don't spend the time to transfer that knowledge from our head down to a piece of paper or some sort of record that our County Farm Bureau can keep to keep the County Farm Bureau moving forward. Include the big blocks, things like your program of activities, which should kind of be a no-brainer. Things, if you have a strategic plan at your County Farm Bureau, that's good to include. Committee notes, maybe important notes that you have found really helpful during your time in leadership, and board meeting minutes. But you should also include the smaller items that you might not have thought about. Things that you might not even consider important at this point, but they might be important for someone coming into your role. Things like reflections of events that you've tried in the past but didn't quite work out. So instead of saying, no, that won't work, we've tried it before, it didn't work, and someone maybe gets access to the insight that you had immediately after trying that new event, be a little bit more well-rounded of a conversation other than, well, we've tried it and it didn't work, so we're not going to do it again. You can capture down key contact names and notes about any discussed changes. So if you're working really closely with your extension agent on a project, you know you're going to be transitioning out of power soon, make sure that you connect your extension agent with the person that you'd like to take your place or your other folks on your leadership board so that all of those transitions are really easy. But think through all of those things that are in your head or maybe in your own personal Rolodex, but not written out on paper for your County Farm Bureau friends. Ideally, you'll want to start this process up to 12 months before you plan to exit. Think about all of the things that Farm Bureau does. Farm Bureau, to me at least, is pretty cyclical. We oftentimes have very similar events and similar timestamps. So maybe your county fair is in the summertime. Maybe you have a big annual meeting in fall. So it's going to be a lot easier to start capturing down all of those things that we talked about, your notes and things that other folks should know kind of as they happen or immediately after they happen, and not have to sit down one night when you're tired after work all day and try to remember all of the things that someone else should know right before you hand off the gavel to the next guy or gal. So you want to prepare up to 12 months in advance to get this kind of ball rolling. The next step, which you might find the most important, is identifying the folks who are potential, who can fill your shoes. Read through your specific officer and board member job descriptions. If you don't know where those are or you don't know if they exist, ask your field staff or ask your state staff to maybe help you write them out. Brainstorm a list of current members whose skill set aligns with the job descriptions that you've come up with for your officers and for your board leadership. Remember, you are not looking for your own clone. Your replacement very well may not look or act or sound like you, but that's okay. If you're too set on one type of person or are locked into one person specifically already, this process is not going to bode well for you. This could be kind of a gut check for a lot of people listening. You might have gone into this session, this conversation, already thinking about the exact person that you think would be perfect to take over on your role or on your board seat or something like that. But you can't be pigeonholed to one specific person because it kind of sets you up for disappointment if that person doesn't follow through, or through the process of identifying and asking and transitioning, you realize that that person isn't quite the best fit. So take your membership list if you have one, look through it and see who has offered the most interest in becoming a Farm Bureau leader, but also who do you think, outside of if they've expressed interest or not, who do you think would be a really good board member? And that's the list that you're going to start off with. Then I want you to think a little bit broader. Think about in agriculture in general. Think about maybe your county ag experience and your county, the folks that contribute to agriculture in your county. Maybe they're not members of Farm Bureau. They could be not members of Farm Bureau for a lot of different reasons, but you never know unless you ask. The same people that are displaying really amazing leadership traits on your soil boards or your water conservation boards might very well be the next leaders that Farm Bureau needs. So don't be afraid to kind of go outside of your fence rows and ask those types of people, because you might just be surprised in who you find. And the next step after you've identified a list of folks is the ask. You want to communicate with them directly. Schedule a lunch or a coffee date or meeting with candidates and communicate to them the potential that you see in them. Think back to your own beginnings of your leadership journey. How wonderful would it have been if someone asked you to lunch and said, man, I really see great potential in you for leadership, for Farm Bureau, and for beyond. Be as specific as you can about the potential that you see in them. Maybe they did a really great job communicating at the last board meeting, something that they were really passionate about. So commend that and then say, for these reasons, I think you would be a wonderful board member. Review the job description that we talked about on the last slide with them and ask if they would even consider it. Make yourself available to answer any questions that they might have, especially younger folks who might have family obligations happening and are in the midst of a lot of other kind of life stuff. You want to make sure that you're as helpful as possible and answer any questions really honestly about the commitment, not only the time, but the resources that you've had to contribute to be a successful board member. So be as honest and open as you can. You want to invite the candidates to maybe sit in on a board meeting and lay out the specific responsibilities of what those board members are. And know that a maybe isn't a no. If someone needs to think about it for a little bit, don't write them off. Just give them more information and make sure that they have all of the information they need in order to make an informed decision, because that's your role here. It's not to dictate and it's not to choose, but it's to inform and then transition. And that brings us to the next step, is transition. What has to be done in order to complete this? You need to remind the new member to take the proper steps in transitioning. That includes working with your staff, with your state staff, field staff, county staff, as well as setting them up with really helpful resources. So like the preparation that you did in step 1, make sure that they understand and can find everything from those notes. I mean, if you're like me, you probably have notes on your phone and on the back of a napkin and, you know, who knows where, but making sure that we want to capture all of those down somewhere that's really easy for folks to understand, that's not you, and include other helpful resources like individuals who you have found helpful during your time in Farm Bureau leadership, or helpful resources like Farm Bureau University. If they're a new board member, they can go in and explore kind of the Farm Bureau basics, the history of Farm Bureau, and what it means to be a board member. Think back to any sort of help that you received as a new board member. Maybe you received none. And that's even more reason to create an environment that will give folks a smooth transition. And I also wanted to note, it's not lost on me that we're talking about succession planning and the leadership transition from one person to another during this really historic time in American history. I just finished watching the inauguration on my TV, and although it's kind of silly to compare the peaceful transition of power that America is going through to the transition of power at a county farm bureau level, the ideals are very American and they remain the same. We want to be able to be as helpful as possible to folks as they transition into any sort of leadership position or positional power, so that they can serve the organization the best that they can and that they're set up for success to help the organization thrive. The last step is the follow-up. And the key here is what makes everyone the most comfortable. You want to talk to your replacement and see what type of follow-up they feel most comfortable with. Maybe to begin, it's a bi-weekly check-in for lunch, or perhaps it's just making yourself available for a text message or a phone call. Setting this expectation is helpful because it speaks to the level of trust that you have in the person that you've kind of helped usher into this leadership role, in your replacement, if you will. Randomly calling and asking for updates after every single board meeting, which I know you wouldn't do, but some people out there in the world, they like to ask for updates after every single board meeting, just makes you seem suspicious and untrusting of the person that you've trusted your roles and responsibilities in, and no one wants that. So decide what kind of follow-up both parties are comfortable with, and then stick to it. Because when folks have a lunch or a coffee date to look forward to, so that they can help, it'll just make everyone the most comfortable, and it also makes you look like the support that you are and not the neck breather that you don't want to be. So when we think about it, who's going to fill your shoes? This is a really quick way that you can, as a board, sit around and kind of think strategically about what your next steps are. The need for leadership succession planning in your county farm bureau. Think about the skills, expertise, and backgrounds that your board currently has, and then list them all out. You can do this with I encourage you to do this with your county board as kind of an exercise. So list out all of the characteristics that you really like, that you think are really important to have in a board member, and then also the expertise and the background and the knowledge. So maybe you have a crop guy and an animal ag guy or gal, or you have someone who's maybe an ag teacher. So list all of those out and think, what does your county need in the next 3 to 5 years? So which of those characteristics and skills and expertise and backgrounds will you need in order to succeed in the next 3 to 5 years? And that's all of the ones that maybe you have, but also maybe some you don't. Maybe there's a technology gap. Maybe there is a gap of maybe a different type of agriculture that's coming into your area that isn't represented on your board. So then ask yourself, where are those gaps? And write that down, and that can really help you in identifying folks to reach out to. Maybe not to take a board seat right away, but to keep your eye on, and also invite to different Farm Bureau events so that they have a more well-rounded view of what Farm Bureau is before they take the plunge and become a county board member. The next thing that we'll talk about is cultivating and developing the prospects and candidates for potential board members. So we have that list, folks to kind of keep our eye on, and then this is one level deeper. And I will say this, it will be very creepy if someone finds this list and they didn't know they were on it. But I think it's still worth trying with your county board. And this should be an ongoing activity. Maybe once a year, this is a list that you all pull out to brainstorm potential members what characteristics you like about them as a board. So someone who is making the ask, making the conversation with them, has some backup. And like I said, people really like specific examples of why folks are interested and see potential in them. So you want some characteristics that you would look out for. And then the current board member who will contact. And that doesn't mean that they can't talk to any other person. And that doesn't mean that other board members can't express interest or express interest in that person becoming a board member. But you want to have just one single point person so that at least that potential member sees comfort, or they have a single point person in order to communicate with them. And then you can also brainstorm ways to get them involved now. Maybe a board seat isn't coming up for a couple of years, but maybe a committee slot for your county fair is coming up. So think about ways that they would be interested to get them involved in Farm Bureau. Again, get some more Farm Bureau experience under their belt. And this should be an ongoing activity that your county Farm Bureau board is thinking about all year. And those are two just really quick examples, exercises that an entire board can come together to help kind of flex your succession planning muscles. I want to thank you for your time this evening or this afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. And I leave you with this photo of the AFBF Young Farmers and Ranchers Leadership Committee from a few years back. And I just want you to reflect on kind of look at these members and knowing them, who are the ages of 18 to 35 a few years ago. Most of them are now sitting on their county Farm Bureau boards back in their home states. And I want you to think about the not only young in age, but also just the diverse perspectives that new and fresh board members bring to the table. So if nothing else, I hope you got a nice laugh and some good examples of what leadership succession planning could look like for your county Farm Bureau. Thanks so much for having me, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Awesome. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little video from Elise. I know American Farm Bureau really took the reins on that. She was really excited to publish that on our behalf, but also said that they had it for succession planning for different states in the future. So what we want to do now is open the floor to some of the questions that we got during the presentation. So I'm going to invite Christy Davis, who is our one of our other outreach managers, who I know has really helped welcome me into the program and definitely answered her fair share of questions from me. So let's get Christy on and give me just a second to get her in our queue. Christy, can you unmute yourself? Or do I have you muted?
I unmuted myself.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so give me just a second to get the video feed to come up so everybody can see your face. But can you introduce yourself and give a little bit of background to you working with the Farm Bureau and how you came to be in this position?
Sure. Well, next year it'll be 10 years that I've been with the Arizona Farm Bureau as a outreach manager, as well as the Young Farmer Rancher coordinator. And recently I've taken over the Women's Leadership Coordinator position. So I have gone through quite a few transitions of leadership since I've been with the Farm Bureau. And I've seen goods, the bads, the beautiful transitions, and the not so great transitions that don't always work out beneficially. But there are lessons to not only us as outreach managers, but there are lessons to our leadership of what they can have help in the future, as well as what they can try to prevent in the future. I thought those videos were really great. I mean, it's great to see Sherry, of course, our wonderful Arizona women's leadership hero, really. It's nice to see her and listen to what she wants as a legacy, and also the Young Farmer and Rancher chair, the AFBF chair. I know that there was some challenges with her year as the YFR chair. And that's one thing that I think that as people find potential leaders, they really need to make sure that their bylaws match what they're asking those people to do. You know, is there anything in the bylaws that says who can be a leader? What is the definition of an eligible person for leadership? Something that we've come, we didn't used to have to worry about that, but in recent years, with more people working off farm than on farm, it's something that you need to really make sure of when you're looking for new leaders.
That makes sense. We had a couple questions come in, and one that kind of segues off of what you were saying. Someone had asked, how does one handle an emergency leader slot to fill? For example, like somebody resigns unexpectedly.
You know, I had that happen, actually. It was due to health reasons that leader had to resign unexpectedly. And fortunately for that county, there was strong leadership that they had on their board as well, and they just stepped right up to the plate. Now, that was definitely a good opportunity for those leaders that were on that board to step up into the next position. And sometimes there's not that succession that's kind of there underlying in that board. And I think that, you know, you need to work with your staff to try to have conversations with people if there is an emergency like that, to say, okay, who would be the best? And as you're having that conversation with them, with this new potential leader, making sure that they know that they're not going this alone. They have field staff, they have an outreach manager that's there to help them, to guide them through, to make sure that they are understanding the process, understanding what their responsibilities are, and that we will be there to hold their hand to make sure that they get up on the ground running, so that they don't have to worry about, you know, I don't know how to do this kind of idea.
Have you had that happen a lot, or is it more of a rare occurrence that somebody kind of steps down unexpectedly?
Like I said, that was for health reasons that person had to step down. And that was really, yeah, that was the first one I'd had in the 10 years that wasn't expected. So it happens. Life happens.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One of the other questions said that identifying is the most important and somewhat challenging step. What if you have more than one potential leader turn you down, especially in a county with few leadership options? And I feel like you have some counties that have kind of a limited pool of resources as far as potential leaders. And I know I kind of do too, so I haven't encountered this yet. But what advice would you give somebody if they experience this?
You know, you can't, if you force somebody into becoming a leader, you don't necessarily always, sometimes it turns out great, but you don't necessarily always have the best situation, because there is a little bit of, the person is unsure of what they're getting into. And I would say that if you have more than one potential leader turn you down, and there's not a whole lot of resources, I mean, keep digging, because I know that in one of your counties before you were here, actually, there was kind of that situation where nobody was really wanting to step up and they weren't sure, but lo and behold, there was a potential leader that, like Elise said, they weren't a part of the board, they weren't even participating. But their family had been longtime Farm Bureau members, and it wasn't quite, they didn't think it was quite their turn to be a part of their quote unquote dad's Farm Bureau. And, but finding that leader, asking those questions, having those conversations, it turned out that this person did want to be a part of the Farm Bureau family and was willing to take over that leadership position. And that family, that Farm Bureau, that county Farm Bureau is doing great now. So it's just a matter of not giving up and just continuing to ask people, maybe those potential leaders don't want to, maybe they're burned out, maybe they got other things going on in their lives that doesn't allow for one more thing. So you just got to kind of keep digging. And as you dig, you'll find the gems. You definitely will.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing I think that Elise had said that I really took to heart was, you don't know if you don't ask. And I think that's something that we struggle a lot with too, is actually finding the people to ask and just assuming that they'll tell us no, or they don't have the time. But in reality, we haven't asked them those questions yet, and we haven't, really delved into if that's a potential opportunity.
And I think that when you do ask, start with the small asks. So start with those small committees, or start with asking them. I say this, I think I said it to you, I say it on our meetings all the time whenever we're talking about new leaders, is we have a really bad habit in the Farm Bureau of forgetting to court somebody and marrying them right away, because we're so excited about a new leader coming into the circle, and having them join in, and all of a sudden they're the county president and they don't know what is going on. They don't know what that means. They don't know what they just got themselves into. And that's not the best situation to put someone in to make them feel comfortable and be able to accomplish what their legacy should be.
Yeah, I've definitely heard you say that a few times, and I thought it was funny, but it is true. It makes sense.
Yeah, being voluntold all the time.
Yep, I have been guilty of voluntelling people and also being voluntold to do things. So this is actually a perfect question for you, especially since you work with YFNR and women's leadership. This one says, what do you think inspires most young people to be in Farm Bureau, or what inspires them to be leaders?
You got to find that spark within them and just light the fire. And every person is different. Some YFNR members come in because they want to do they're really excited about being an advocate for Farm Bureau and learning how to talk to, do ag in the classroom, learn how to do, to be an advocate on many levels. Some people, they're just into the policy development and they don't want the warm and fluffiness of all the other parts of Farm Bureau. They just want to come to a policy development meeting. They want to talk policy. And that is totally fine, because everybody has their niche in what they want to do, what they want, what their passion is. And I think that's what you have to do with these young leaders, is figure out their passion. My YFNR committee has gone from one end of the spectrum to the other end of the spectrum, depending on who's involved in the committee, depending on who is the chair and what their legacy what they want their legacy to be. So you really have to see what somebody wants to do here, lay out all the cards and let them choose their path on what they want to do with Farm Bureau, and just help guide them to make sure that they know that it is possible to do all these different things. We're not just policy development, though we are policy driven. We're not just ag in the classroom, but we have a great ag in the classroom program. So, I mean, you just got to find what that person really wants to do with their Farm Bureau career.
Right, that makes sense. And I think the great thing about Farm Bureau is there's so many different facets to what the Farm Bureau is, that it can really, different leaders stepping into different leadership roles can kind of take and embrace and run with whatever it is that they're excited about. And it could vary a little bit differently depending on whoever their leader was before them. So that's a really great point.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody had asked if they can get copies of the sheets that Elise was talking about. Yeah, absolutely. I can send those to the outreach managers, and they can send those out to the county leaders, and you guys can use those at your next meetings or as you're going through and doing your programs of work. So we can absolutely send those. This one says, Christy will be addressing the member qualifications at the state level this year. Cochise has just recently reviewed our bylaws regarding who's eligible for board members. So have you had any of your other county leaders or counties start talking about what their qualifications are and kind of looking at those bylaws and areas?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's going to be a few counties. I mean, I talked about it in one of my counties just recently because as the county leader who's the secretary said, she said, you know, I'm not involved in agriculture. My income doesn't come from agriculture anymore. But our bylaws state that in order to be an officer, I should be involved in ag. And so it's just something that, you know, the bylaws were written back when these county boards were all farmers and ranchers. And we all know that that 2% is hard to sometimes, you know, be a full farmer or rancher. A lot of people work off the farm. So if a person is passionate about agriculture and passionate about advocating for the industry, then we need to make sure that they, not saying that we need to, you know, have all of our leaders be other than farmers and ranchers. I don't want to say that at all. But I think that it's totally up to the county how they want their board represented. And remember that their board president, those leaders sit on the state board. So making sure that everything kind of falls into place too. It's like every county farm bureau, it will be unique to them.
Right, that's absolutely true. That makes lots of sense. Not necessarily a question, but there was somebody who said that they thought Sherry definitely met her legacy goals, and then somebody who asked if they could duplicate her 100 times over. And I've only had a limited experience with her, but man, is she impressive. What do you think are some of Sherry's best qualities that could kind of resonate and transition to different leaders that you've seen working with her?
You know, I've got to work with Sherry a couple of different times, but because she was so involved with the American Farm Bureau board since I've been on with Farm Bureau, I didn't get a chance to really do a lot of one-on-one with her. But I would say, you know, the thing that I loved about Sherry was, you know, her background is that she was and if you ever want to hear more of her background, I believe that Erin Kerr-Kuiper has a podcast, and she did a great interview with Sherry if you want to hear anything about Sherry's background. But she was a city girl that met the farmer and moved to Buckeye to a cotton farm. And she was like, what in the heck did I get myself into? I've got to do a little bit more. But the best part about it is that Sherry was asked to participate. And after she was asked to participate, she got bit by that bug of educating people about agriculture and about the truth behind agriculture and the misconceptions of agriculture. And ever since then, she just, you know, was hungry for anything that she could learn. She started out in YF&R, she transitioned to the women's leadership, and the rest is history. And I think that the best part of Sherry is that she is a good listener, and she's willing to take challenges and just accomplish so many things in her wake. So if I could, I would definitely multiply Sherry for sure.
Perfect. Yeah, it was really cool to see her at the AFBF convention. I felt like I knew a small piece of a local celebrity. It was kind of cool to fangirl over that. So excited about some of the really great things that we have on our calendar this year as far as Arizona Farm Bureau, and look forward to working with each of the counties and all of the different items and events that they have coming up throughout the year. Hopefully COVID kind of gets things a little bit more what we would consider kind of back to normal. So looking forward to that It looks like we've answered all of the questions that have come in. Somebody had said that Sherry Saylor, her best qualities were engagement, passion, and inclusiveness.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely think that those encompass her. Well,
And I think that if anybody's looking for more leadership development, I mean, check out the YFNR program, check out the Women's Leadership Program, talk to your county outreach manager about what you want to do as far as your Farm Bureau involvement, how involved. I ask every one of my YFNR members, what do you want your YFNR path to look like? What do you want to compete in? What do you want to participate in? Who do you want to be by the time you're done at 35? I know it seems so old. What do you want to be when you're done? Where do you want to go from there? So I think that it's just something that people need to have conversations, and some conversations may not be as easy as other conversations, but definitely take advantage of Farm Bureau. Fusion, which is the Women's Leadership YFNR conference, is coming up in March. It's going to be virtual, so anybody can participate in it. So I encourage you to take advantage of that, not just for your Farm Bureau, but for your personal leadership development as well.
Perfect. I agree. Thank you so much, Chrissy, for being our resident expert. I couldn't think of anybody better to navigate these questions with, and I definitely learned a lot listening to you. And I hope everybody really enjoyed the first of our series of webinar Wednesdays. Thank you guys. Have a blessed evening, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Bye, everyone.
Bye.